Good morning and welcome to the second day of this CharmEU event on how the European Universities Initiative can support the European Green Deal. Today we will have two plenary sessions, one on the role of external stakeholders in supporting university in achieving this objective, and a second one on research and innovation, and specifically the intersection between this topic and Horizon Europe. I remind you that you can follow the event through the YouTube and Facebook channel of CharmEU. You can comment on it with the hashtags CharmEU Days, EU Green Deal, and CharmEU Green Deal. And you can access slido.com with the hashtag CharmEU Days to post your comments and your questions. That can be also posted on the YouTube and Facebook channel. So first of all, we would like to start with a very inspiring video that was sent us by Zitouni Uldada, which is the Deputy Director of Climate and Environment at FAO, which will focus on one of the key challenges that a project like CharmEU faces, food. So let's start with this inspiring video.
Our food system today is broken, and we need to fix it. Agriculture occupies about 40% of the world's land. It uses about 70% of the fresh water and contributes about a third of greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change. And the situation we have today is really very bleak, because on one hand, we have around 700 million people who go hungry every day. And on the other hand, we have around 2 billion people who are obese or overweight. So you can see the big contrast. And the COVID-19 pandemic may add between 83 and 132 million people to the total of the undernourished people in the world by the end of this year. So if these trends continue, we are not going to be able to meet the Sustainable Development Goal to achieve zero hunger by 2030, unfortunately. So we still have to do much, much more, and we need to fix the food system so it can produce food but nourish people as well. So we're all responsible, and we all have a role to play in finding solutions to fix this problem. So to fix the food system, we need to do many things. For example, we need to rethink the way that we produce, distribute, and consume food. We need to produce food that is, we need to produce food in an efficient way and sustainable way as well. And we need to stop wasting food. At the moment, we waste a third of the food that is produced for human consumption. And as I said earlier, we have around 700 million people who go hungry, 2 billion people who are obese or overweight, and yet we continue wasting the third of the food. So there is so much scope here to do much better, to be more efficient, and to work towards sustainability in producing food. So we also need to reconnect with nature, and we need to value our food. We need to appreciate where the food is coming from and how we can appreciate it in the way that was produced, and the soil that was used, and the nutrient and the energy and the effort of farmers and those who produced food and distributed it and made it available to us. And you are all powerful agents of change and can make a big difference to this. So my two key messages to you today are, first, our choices matter. So think about the choice you make in purchasing food and what impact that has on the environment and on your health. Second, we need to change our mindsets. We need to start looking at food differently. We need to value the food available to us. We need to appreciate it. and we need to make sure that when we make our choices, they're good for the environment and they're good for the planet. So the challenge I would like to leave you with today is, well, what are you going to do about it? As an individual, what action are you going to take to help with this? Are you going to start eating more locally? Are you going to stop wasting food? Are you going to share more food? Are you going to stop buying food that is wrapped in plastic? Are you going to help the poor? Don't underestimate any action that any of us would take, however small it is. All actions are important and every little helps. So think about that and think about the responsibility and think about the sustainability that we're aiming for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zitouni Oldada, for this inspiring talk and for pointing to a set of issues that certainly university and scholars can give a great contribution to, like, for example, reducing food waste and improving more healthy food that is compatible with the limits of the planet. After this first inspiring introduction, we are going to open our first panel that is devoted to how external stakeholders can engage with the European Universities Initiative to address the European Green Deal. Of course, in order to address the objectives of the European Green Deal, universities need the support of civil society and in particular of business, of companies. And another aspect in which companies are crucial is the just transition mechanism. So the dimension of the European Green Deal that tries to leave no one behind in this transition toward a greener society. In order to talk about this subject, we have a set of diverse and very interesting panelists. I will present them quickly and then I will give the word to the first one, Caroline Zenit, of the Global Goals Project of the Copernicus Institute of Sustainable Development at Utrecht University, Jaron Spearings, Head of Industry Marketing at RICO Europe, Celia Bellin, a CEO at Silcare. Then we have Carlos Montero, Chief Technology Officer at Aguas de Barcelona, Estíbaliz Sáenz Cámara, Head of Sustainability of the University of the Basque Country, and Fons Nielen, CEO of the Nielen Schumann Consultancy. So let us first start with Caroline Zenit. Good morning. She works at the University of the Utrecht University at the Copernicus Institute for Sustainable Development on a project called Global Goals that tries to address the question on how to carry out a global governance that is based on goals rather than, for example, on specific indications on how institutions are designed, etc. So Caroline Zenit, please, the stage is yours.
Hello, thank you. Thanks so much. So just let me share my screen first. Okay, so I hope that you can all see my screen now, right? Okay, good. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are logging in from. I'm delighted to be part of this exciting panel on the avenues for collaboration between stakeholders and European universities to address the European Green Deal. So my name is Caroline Zenit. I'm a postdoc researcher at the Copernicus Institute of Sustainable Development at Utrecht University. And in addition to my role as a coordinator in module design, I am also part of the Global Goals Project, as it has been just said, which aims to assess the steering effects of the Sustainable Development Goals on different aspects of governance. And specifically, my research interests lie in the inclusiveness and legitimacy of global governance arrangements on sustainability and on the inclusion of external stakeholders into global governance arrangements. So in this short presentation, I'd like to highlight why European university initiatives like Charm EU are important to connect EU policies to society, and then I will explore with you some options of concrete engagement of stakeholders with European universities to address the EU Green Deal. So first, as I just said, I'd like to highlight why European university initiatives like Charm EU are important and how they contribute to connect EU policies such as the Green Deal with society. And one of the first reasons I'd like to mention is that European university initiatives like Charm EU contribute to raise awareness of global sustainability challenges and foster ownership over global policy frameworks such as the European Green Deal. And I think this is extremely important in a time that is characterized by increasing distrust in elites and in institutions, be they scientific, economic, or political. So raising awareness of young people on wicked problems like climate change, like biodiversity erosion, and on the different ways to address these problems in collaboration with external stakeholders can trigger action. Second, and this is connected to what I just said, raising awareness can in some way lead to greater democratic skills. European university initiatives allow to build the democratic skills of young people by developing their critical thinking and analysis, and by forging their research, their advocacy, and their negotiating skills in collaboration with external stakeholders. So in short, Charm EU is preparing young people to exercise an active citizenship and to collaborate with societal actors in addressing global challenges. And this picture here on the left is the example of a project in which I was involved before joining Utrecht University. And together with 25 civil society organizations across Europe, we used student input to demand accountability on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is, for instance, a concrete example of how collaboration could happen within Charm EU. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, European universities like Charm EU are important because their transdisciplinary and solution-oriented education is needed to accelerate transformation and achieve the goals of the Green Deal. As you all know, global sustainability challenges require the participation of all actors in a synergistic way. And we really need all hands on deck to ensure a just and sustainable transition. And in this regard, the engagement of external stakeholders is particularly important. So now, how can external stakeholders practically engage with European universities such as Charm EU? So one important feature of Charm EU, I think you might know by now, is challenge-based learning. Challenge-based learning is an educational approach that frames learning around global and real-world challenges, and these challenges will be co-developed between the students, the academic network, and stakeholders. So one way to engage is to bring real-life concrete challenges to education. And this is possible throughout the different phases of the forthcoming master, but I would say most of all during the capstone phase, where students will work in transdisciplinary teams on defining a real-world challenge, bringing in input and insights from research on their own scientific field and knowledge from the different phases of the master, and ultimately delivering a solution that will contribute to society, that will hopefully contribute to the European Green Deal. And through this capstone phase, you can then include students in your activities and in the production of concrete and tangible outputs for your organization. So in other terms, you can have students work on an impact deliverable, which can help you reach your goals as an organization. So, for instance, if you're a company, those students could work on a consultancy report that could help you reach your sustainability goals within the framework of the EU Green Deal. Or let's say you're a civil society organization, you could have those students draft a research-informed position paper. So there are many examples in which students, academics, and external stakeholders can collaboratively work towards reaching global goals. Another way to engage is through, for instance, mentoring. So external stakeholders can contribute to the mentoring of students in the definition and development of their career path, and also to their personal development as active citizens. And this is connected to what I said before about building the democratic skills of young people. And finally, another interesting way to engage is to participate in education. So either as experts in teaching the modules, but also potentially as recipients of education. So for instance, with training on sustainability challenges, this could also be possible. So this is mainly all what I wanted to say. I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions and comments during the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline Zenit, for providing this interesting list of possible bidirectional ways of collaborating between CharmU and external stakeholders. And now we move to the next speakers, which is a representative of one of these external stakeholders. It's Jeroen Spierings, Head of Industry Marketing at RICO Europe, a company providing document services to businesses. Good morning, Jeroen Spierings.
Good morning. Good morning to all attendees. Let me share my screen. So thank you very much for the invitation. Today I want to explain and use the coming 10 minutes or so to explain what we're doing with regards to creating a sustainable future for all. RICO is a Japanese organization. Our headquarters is based in Tokyo. We employ over 90,000 employees worldwide, and we operate in 200 countries. We were founded in 1936, and we've created 15 global R&D locations across the world. We're in the middle of a huge transformation for our global organization. Basically, we see, especially now with the pandemic, that the office print, or our traditional business of office printing, is declining, and is declining rapidly, and we need to reinvent our organization. On an annual basis, we spend between 5 to 6% of our annual revenue into research and development and innovation to help reinvent our organization and the businesses and the solutions and services we provide to our customers. Sustainability is key within this transformation. It's one of the key drivers in order to reinvent our organization. On this slide, you can see the Sustainable Development Goals that we're actively supporting moving forward. And on the left-hand side, you can see the 5 strategic pillars that are key in order to reinvent our organization. So as I said, sustainability is key. We have over 50 projects and programs in place today, and I'm going to highlight a couple of those projects that we're currently undertaking. Our sustainability strategy was first developed in 1994. We are a huge manufacturer. We have production plants in Japan, in China, in other parts of the world. And in 1994, we developed something that we call the Comet Circle. And the Comet Circle basically was introduced to do a couple of things. One is to extend long use of our products in the field. Secondly, it was developed to actually support and enhance the reuse of our products, but also the reuse of parts of our products. As you can imagine, that a lot of these products and parts could be reused in other products as well. And for supporting that kind of activity, we've developed in several parts of the world, let's say, recycle centers. So when products are end of life, we transport them to those centers, and in the centers, let's say, using specific processes, some of these products will be reused, some of the parts will be reused, and other parts will be recycled. And critical to that is, let's say, a closed loop program. So reusing and recycling has been a part of our, I would say, DNA since 1994, and of course will continue to do so, and to support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We set ourselves key targets, and I want to highlight two of those, let's say, today: achieving a zero carbon society and achieving a circular economy. So supporting the goals 7 and 13 and 12. And basically, one of the targets in achieving a zero carbon society is the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 63% in 2030. We want to decarbonize, let's say, and helping to decarbonize society by technology developments. And I want to highlight some of the examples that and some of the projects that we're currently undertaking. So we're looking to enhance the energy saving function of the products that we manufacture and we produce. So our office printing products have an energy saving function, but that needs to be enhanced, let's say, moving forward. The second element or area that we're looking at with regards to energy saving is using, let's say, not necessarily electric power to, let's say, power our devices, but looking at alternatives. For example, the use of batteries. We're currently doing tests in various offices to use indoor lighting to, let's say, charge batteries, and those batteries can then be used to power laptops, but also smartphones, and maybe all more, let's say, smaller electric devices. The target is that at some stage, maybe this innovation or maybe this technology development can be actually used to power other devices in offices as well. And this is currently in test phase, and we're trying to integrate this into, let's say, office furniture moving forward. And we're also looking at, let's say, replacing, let's say, electric power with even newer technologies moving forward. So this is a project that is, let's say, constantly enhancing the ways to let's say, power devices in offices moving forward. A lot of the sustainability projects that we let's say, deploy are actually based on two key areas for us. One is, of course, the internal processes, the internal manufacturing and production of our devices that we put out in the market, but also helping our customers to reach their sustainability goals as well. So providing solutions and services to our customers to enhance their sustainability moving forward. second area that I would like to highlight today is around our projects and initiatives with regards to achieving a circular economy, so supporting goal number 12. And this is an example that I want to highlight, is the reduction of single-use plastics in manufacturing. And of course, a lot of the products we produce use plastics. We want to reduce the single use of let's say, plastics by 50% in 2030. And basically recycling of plastics in the R&D centers that I've just mentioned. In Europe, there are 2 at the moment, and we want to open up a 3rd one in Spain. We want to use of, let's say, recycled plastics for printing and imaging products. And that needs to be, let's say, the use of recycled plastics needs to increase by 50% in 2030. One of the other areas in this kind of program of achieving a circular economy, we're also looking at creating more smaller and lighter products. So this is also an area where we're investing quite heavily at the moment. As I said in the beginning, it is a little bit too much to highlight all the programs and projects that and initiatives that we're undertaking at the moment to support the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. We have over 50, as I mentioned in the beginning. And we report on that via an annual report on the ESGs and the targets and the objectives that we have set out for our organization. This annual report on reporting on the ESGs, this can be found on our website. There's lots more information that you can find. So with that, I want to hand it back to the facilitator of the events. Thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to answering any questions moving forward.
Thank you, Jaron Spearings. I found your list of ideas really very interesting, ranging from recharging a battery with the office light to, for example, building lighter products. And this also, I think, may give a lot of inspiration to the students and the other members of the academic community that may bring a lot of knowledge to this sort of projects. So now let's move to Celia Bellin, which is the CEO of Silcare, which is a company that provides preclinical services in neurosciences and otology. Welcome, Celia.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't have slides. So my name is Celia Bellin. Hello to everyone. I'm CEO and co-founder of Silcare, Cilcare. That is a company that is solely specialized in the development of therapeutic solutions for people suffering from hearing disorders. My background is in drug development. I have worked for Sanofi in research and development for 15 years before creating Silcare. I have a master's degree in health, environment, and industrial strategy. I studied in Montpellier and did lots of internships, especially in Gießen, Germany, and at the Marine Research Center of Grindavik in Iceland. So I feel like an old Charm AU student. I'm going to tell you more in this keynote about Silcare's story in the perspective of this panel, as it can illustrate in some way part of the health pillar that Charm AU is building. So Silcare has been founded by 3 ambitious scientists, women, and we all 3 have a very strong background in pharmaceutical development. We operate from our facilities in Montpellier, Paris, Copenhagen, and in Lexington, Massachusetts, where we partnered with CBSET, a translational research center that is linked to MIT. Together, we evaluate the preclinical efficacy and safety of drugs, biological compounds, gene therapy, and medical devices to treat hearing loss, tinnitus, and otitis. So we think we have a very important mission because 466 million people worldwide suffer from hearing disorders. That is more than the combination of people living with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, and epilepsy altogether. According to WHO, it's even dramatically increasing and should reach 1 billion people by 2050. Today, for 1 out of 3 people over 65-year-old, for 1 out of 4 from 45-year-old, is disabling. This is happening because of the aging population, our noisy lifestyles, infections like otitis media, for instance, in children that affect more particularly the emerging countries, and the more than 200 ototoxic drugs on the market, like cisplatin cancer treatments, which irreversibly damage hearing. There is a role to play for health authorities, including EMA, to build guidelines and systematically recommend to any drug developers to test the safety of their drug candidates before they reach the market. This will have a direct consequences of hearing disorders epidemics, and I can imagine that Charm AU can contribute to raise awareness about improving some regulations for the sake of the European population. Suffering from hearing disorders takes us even further because hearing loss is clearly linked to other therapeutic areas. It is the number 3 risk factor for Alzheimer's disease and dementia. It is a comorbidity factor for both type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and hearing loss and tinnitus are, for instance, the top 2 health conditions among military veterans. Today, there are no pharmacological treatments for major hearing disorders. The existing approaches, such as hearing aids, offer limited improvement, are expensive and stigmatizing. For the more severe cases, they can have access to cochlear implant surgery. But the reality is that a cochlear implant user cannot distinguish one voice from another, cannot discern melodies, and if a fire alarm goes off at night, will not hear it because they have to disconnect it to sleep. Understanding disabilities and finding ways to improve inclusion of each and every one in our world of work should be more strongly impulsed by the new generation. Charm AU mission is about changing mentality to build a sustainable world. This has to be thought as well in terms of diversity. That means accepting differences, understanding the true value of being all different for increasing company performance, not only on short terms and closed-minded business models, but on very long terms with smart business regenerative models. Working in the hearing area require special expertise because the cochlea, which receives sound, is extremely difficult to target, and the signal sent by its hair cells must be understood by the brain. Silcare is the only services company that has the expertise to understand this complexity and therefore work on identifying, developing, and delivering the therapies which will protect or restore the hair cells and the neurons which make the system function. In this particular therapeutic areas, we mix different scientific disciplines that are not always connected by essence: acoustics, physics, biology, pharmacology, analytics, and so on. You understand we've been very strongly connected to the University of Montpellier, especially to connect various teams and expertise toward a common target that lead to a better understanding of our beautiful sense of hearing. When I learned about Charm AU, that has the objectives of increasing the quality of education, research, and international competitiveness of the European higher education landscape, I immediately thought this was of high values for any private companies that would link to Charmy European network. Access to highly qualified students, agile, adaptable, connected, and with an international mindset can definitely contribute to the growth and success of our companies. At least it is obvious for Silcare. We have clients in Barcelona in the biotech field, in Dublin in the medtech field. We have a very strong partner called ENT Clinical in Utrecht, as well as major key opinion leaders. And historically, I've been working with Budapest on different other topics for 20 years. So CHARM AU is putting together the universities of the cities which are already part of our dear network. From my opinion, CHARM AU initiative can contribute in the short, mid, and long terms to address those major global health issues like hearing loss by educating students on different ways to think about people and health more globally, more holistically, more sustainably. Because health with a big H is not only about treating a life-threatening disease. It's much more than that. We are looking for well-being, for well and healthy aging, and for peace. This can only be achieved by changing fundamentally our way to think about growth and business. And we expect CHARM AU to be part of this changing mentality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salia Bellin. You have really managed to open our mind with respect to the topic we are dealing with today, bringing in issues like diversity and regulation, etc. So really, one can look at this topic in many, many dimensions. And now let's move to Carlos Montero, which is the Chief Technology Officer of Aigües de Barcelona, a company that provides water services in Barcelona and its metropolitan area. Good morning, Carlos Montero.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your invitation. Let's see if I can share my screen. I have a little bit of echo. Well, in fact, I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Spain. That is the, sorry. And that is the mother company of Aigües de Barcelona. But Suez, in a glance, is a global company. We are serving citizens with three main areas of three main products. One is water, where we are serving in the 5 continents. Also, we have a strong division on resource recovery, so formerly called waste. And also we make renewable energy. That is not, I would say, it's not something that we sell to others, but is for self-consumption. But we use green energy from our own assets, as I will explain later, to be more sustainable. In the case of Spain, we are, I would say, mostly in the coastal areas and very spread through the geography, and we are serving 13 million inhabitants in Spain. What I would like to share you today is an idea of what we are doing for the Sustainable Development Goals, and place 3 examples of our specific commitment. And when we are talking about commitment, you can see in the right. Sorry, it is in Spanish, but you have also the report here in the link, and you can download it and check it carefully. When we say commitment, we say that we place for each one of these Sustainable Development Goals specific KPIs that are linked to our activity and our performance. So let's say it is compulsory for us to achieve these goals. In particular, those marked in green are those that are priority for us. There's action for climate, of course, clean water and sanitation, also our contribution to the end of poverty, and the public-private partnerships. In particular, just to comment that we already achieved last year this 90% of reduction of emissions from our electric consumption. So we are changing this KPI to be a bit more ambitious for 2021. We are committed to reduce the equivalent of 20% of water consumption of the inhabitants for 1 year. And as I will explain in detail later, we are also committed with the citizens, providing social funds and social tariffs. And of course, our way of working is a collaborative way. We have this in our companies. Most of them, or many of them, are mixed companies. That means public-private for the water service, but also in our research. And I'm also manager of the research center that is together with the university and the National Research Council of Spain. And we are delivering every year more than 40 projects built in a collaborative way with the universities. More than 160 contracts with universities in the last 10 years with the research center, 70% of them in Europe, 30% of them in Spain. So let's go for some specific examples on how we contribute to this new model of circular economy and how we can contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. Well, one of our main activities is the water treatment. When we are talking about wastewater, the former model, the current model in most of the places, is that we receive in our assets wastewater, and we use energy to clean that water, turn it back to the receiving body, and in this activity we generate some waste. Well, how we approach now to this activity? Well, we call it biofactories, and we receive the water. Of course, we deliver it to the environment, but we do it in a different with a different approach. We don't in some of our plants, we already don't get any power from the network. Even in the contrary, we are delivering a bit of power to the network. We are making a water reuse, so we are regenerating water quality in such a way that the land farmers, for instance, or some industries can use this water. Also, we generate biogas and other biofuels. And we use the valorization of the sludge either in agriculture or for other purposes. Also, we are doing some research to even extract some valuable products from water. So this is not a theory. We implemented this in, let's say, the most impacting and challenging place we have, that is La Farfana Plan. La Farfana Plan received the water from Santiago de Chile, 6 million inhabitants in Santiago de Chile. And we launched a large list of projects, most of them, let's say, technical projects. So we are talking not to deliver any waste to dumping stations, making co-digestion to improve the quantity and quality of biogas, gasification of the dry sludge to even get more gas, syngas from this former waste, and taking advantage of all the thermal energy that is in the plant to improve our cycle and be less dependent on external energy. Today, I think the La Farfana plant, that is the biggest plant in Latin America, is 90% self-sufficient in terms of energy. But also this project is linked to the community. And we are, with a wider view, involving the local community that is there close to La Farfana. There is the community is not very well developed in economic terms, and we are trying to do 0-kilometer activities in our area of influence to improve the social well-being of the people around the plant. It is not a single case here in Spain. We also did it in Granada, where we even are increasing our energy upper the consumption of the plant. So we have energy in excess in this plant, and we are implementing this model in all our plants, in all the plants that we are managing, always following this same scheme of water use, energy improvement, valorization of resources, and also the environment, but not only the environment of the receiving body, that is a mandatory from the directive, but also making connections with the local community and trying to involve them in our cycle and trying to provide some benefit to them. We are very proud of this initiative because it was a pioneer in the world, and we received a prize from the United Nations and also a prize from the European Commission. Second example and second commitment of our company is the social contribution. So we devote in Spain 7 million euros for social tariffs. That means that we are in connection with the NGOs that tell us who is not able to pay the water bill, and so we pay this water bill for them. So this is our commitment. Unfortunately, these funds has to be increased. First, we started this more than 5 years ago, and we have been increasing this fund year over year. And now with this crisis, we are perceiving that the small improvements we had in the last year have been lost and overpassed for the now very difficult situation in the society. So we are offering this to the citizens that cannot pay the water bill, but also we make some investment in through public-private foundation for projects of involving the people in educational projects and also for art projects and development of socioeconomic development. And finally, the third social aspect is the commitment of the employees of the company in volunteer actions. Well, the third topic is green jobs. Probably you have heard a lot of green jobs. So green jobs are those that reduce the environmental impact of companies and help us to reach a more sustainable levels in our activity. So we are really in a company, and we are happy for that we are contributing to make a better planet. And this is not just a nice sentence. We feel it because we are pushing this reduction of energy, this recovery of raw materials from water, trying to minimize and even, if possible, decarbonize our activity, reduce the waste and the pollution, and protect the ecosystems. So this is 3 examples of our commitment with the Green Deal. We are, of course, very active in trying to find opportunities where we can contribute to this opportunity to change the way we produce services to the citizens. And I will be very happy to receive any questions and have a discussion with my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos Montero. These examples you gave about coming from Chile and Spain are really, really astonishing. How all these fixes in the working of these plants really manage to create a big positive environmental impact. Okay, so our next speaker is Estíbaliz Sáez de Cámara. She's the head of sustainability of the University of the Basque Country. She's on the advisory board of the Sustainable Development Solution Network, Red Española de Desarrollo Sostenible, RED. Estíbaliz, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me and giving the opportunity of sharing some practical examples and some of the key aspects that, from my point of view, are necessary in order to support the European Green Deal from European universities. And here I'm acting as with two roles, because I have been invited because I'm an advisory. I'm a member of the advisory board of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in Spain. But at the same time, I'm the head of sustainability of the University of the Basque Country. So I know perfectly what kind of things can we do, or what are the difficulties of implementing or integrating the European Green Deal into the higher education system. Thank you very much for sharing the screen. Shall I move it? Okay, good. First of all, I want to present you both organizations and the kind of things are we doing in order to support sustainability, and specifically the European Green Deal. The Spanish Sustainable Development Solutions Network was created in 2015. It contributes to the design and implementation of transformative solutions for sustainable development and generates evidence and knowledge to shape the implementation of SDGs in Spain, with its particular characteristics. Our vision is that of a multilateral platform with a pragmatic, holistic approach that facilitates the transfer of knowledge to the implementation of initiatives that promote sustainable development. And our main purpose is this one. It's the main objective for the main topic of these 2 days, is to activate both universities, research centers, companies, and civil societies to solve practical problems on sustainable development. And we focus our attention on energy, water, biodiversity, and gender. Okay, we work on different projects. Very good. And we promote collaboration, as mentioned, between higher education institutions, research organizations, companies, policymakers, NGOs. And we work on different topics such as climate change, sustainable energy, food for the future, sustainable mobility and tourism, biodiversity, rural depopulation, and some other specific problems or challenges in Spain. Here you have some of the products of these research projects. Here you can see we have recently published a guide or a report of what's the contribution of the more than 100 cities in Spain to sustainable development goals. As well as a guide to sustainable tourism and to Spanish companies, or to the companies in the Mediterranean area, because it's focused on the Mediterranean area. And more recently, a guide to help universities to evaluate what's their contribution to sustainable development goals. More recently, in the previous lockdown, we started this incubator. It was known the day after, el día después, and it was an incubator for partnerships to accelerate sustainable transformation in this new situation with the pandemic. Here we ask to different agents, how do we imagine the day after the pandemic emergency? What if we learn from this crisis to accelerate the shift toward meeting the 2030 agenda? What if we learn from this crisis to accelerate the shift towards meeting the Sustainable Development Goals? And if we learn from this crisis to collaborate together? And we have been organizing meetings. It was like one meeting per week during the lockdown. And to every meeting, there were connected more than 1,000 people. We produced a lot of materials, a lot of documents, and a lot of ideas. And if you want, you can access to this platform, and there you can check all the meetings, all the discussions, and all the projects that have emerged from this incubator. Okay. Moving to the University of the Basque Country. The University of the Basque Country is the most important education and research institution in the Basque Country. The Basque Country is located in North Spain, very close to the French border. Our university is deeply rooted in the Basque society. Therefore, we maintain a strong commitment in the Basque culture and with the Basque language. And at the same time, our university is open to the world and internationalization. and is one of the priorities of our management model. It also plays an intellectual leadership in this region, and moreover, our institution assumes an ethical and social commitment because we believe that teaching and research must be based on values and must be based on the Sustainable Development Goals. Our university is around 36,000 undergraduate students and about 8,000 master and doctoral students. If we added that more than 14,000 people enroll in different degrees and complementary courses, we train more than 57,000 students each year. The teaching and research staff is made of 4,400 people. More than 90% of them are permanent staff. And to this, we have to add professionals that are in charge of administration and services. As a comprehensive university, we offer 76 undergraduate programs and 12 double degrees in all fields of knowledge. And we also offer 100 official masters and 66 PhD programs. Okay, our university has generated a rich per-university ecosystem, which includes institutes in polymer science and marine biology. We have also launched, together with the Basque government, 3 Basque Excellent Research Centers in materials science, in neurosciences, and we have 2 joint centers with the Spanish Research Council in biophysics and material physics, and with a public-private endeavor, we pilot a center for advanced manufacturing in aeronautics. And the technological portfolio includes more than 200 assets protected by 400 patents in 50 countries. I would like to highlight the nearly 1,300 contracts since last year with more than 600 companies and social entities. And in this slide, you can see the technology transfer data corresponding to the last year. We also are in a very good environment, or in a privileged and reference region. The Basque Country approved the Basque strategy, or the circular economy strategy for the Basque Country 2030 last year, before the Spanish strategy, as well as a strategy for climate change, and 2 years ago, a strategy for education for sustainable development, among others. So we have a very good ecosystem in order to promote, to integrate, to promote the Green Deal in our universities, because there are 2 other private universities in the Basque Country, and in order to integrate it into all our areas. However, we think that we have a lot of work to do. And here, answering to the question proposed for this roundtable, here you can see what are, for me, at least for me, what are the main points. If you can move this slide, please. Thank you. Okay, for me, how external stakeholders can engage with European universities to address the European Green Deal? Here you have, for my opinion, the first one. It's they have to help us, the universities, to mobilize research and foster innovation on key challenges and very specific challenges. For this, there are necessary partnerships between companies, administration, higher education institutions, and research organizations. And for this, it's necessary, or we need to propose projects together, to start living labs, and to work on key aspects for the companies into our region or into our surrounding area. Here you have an example, one experience. It's just one, because we have to start, and not just one, a lot of them. Here you have, here you can see a photograph of the group of students working in the Basque Eco-Design Hub. The Basque Eco-Design Center was an initiative which began in 2011 as a result of the cooperation between the Basque government and some private companies. This is the only initiative of these characteristics in Spain and in South Europe. And one of the projects of this Basque Eco-Design Center was is the Basque Eco-Design Hub. And one of the main activities of this Basque Eco-Design Hub is to it's the training activity, or it's to promote the eco-design training activity in the Basque Country and its application. They propose ideas into this laboratory. It's located in Bilbao, and here there are different lines of action, such as training young people from different disciplines, both students and employees, working with companies to solve specific problems or to help them with specific challenges. Also training the industrial companies and their technical staff, and establishing, and especially this one, establishing an eco-design environment watch and research system in the Basque Country. Okay, the second idea, or for me, the second important aspect in order to integrate this European Green Deal into the European universities. Okay, it's fostering a change, fostering a change from conventional approaches to research-based learning or to challenge-driven learning methodologies. This idea was mentioned by the first speaker. I think that this is a key aspect. Perhaps it's more important than the previous one. For this, and from my point of view as a teacher, as a researcher, we need a transformative experience, and we need real, complex and local global projects. We have to propose our students real, complex, local global projects, because if not, it's really difficult to develop and to teach them and to learn some soft skills. Here you have an example, is Ocean. Ocean is a project focused on the challenge oceans plastic pollution, especially microplastic pollution, and its mission is to contribute to the reduction of pollution in the Bay of Biscay. This reflects the strategy of the University of the Basque Country, that it's a multiplication of learning, teaching, and sustainability. It's an educational innovation project. It's a pilot project that seeks to develop transversal or soft competences of university students based on these research-based learning methodologies and challenges oriented to the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. It adopts these visions, and students' research projects and practices are oriented to the proposed mission, mobilizing collaboration and co-construction of knowledge, as well as solution in close collaboration with territorial or regional agents from the public, private, and civil society sector. The competences being developed, among others, have to do with the interdisciplinarity or transdisciplinarity, cross-sectoral approaches, systemic and integrated focus on problems, integration of Sustainable Development Goals values, and some other skills such as intercultural and multilingual situations. This was the second point, and the third one for me, from my opinion, it's if we want to integrate this European Green Deal and to promote this collaboration between external agents and the universities, we have to consider that our learning does not end when we obtain our degree or our master or our PhD. It's very important to promote lifelong learning, because our challenges change from one year to the other one. See what's happening now with this situation. We are learning to live in a very different situation and to propose very different projects and to work into a very different way. And in order to promote this lifelong learning and to help the companies, to help the university, it's very important to offer transdisciplinary masters. And these masters have to be designed together with these companies, with the private sector, with the administration, in order to offer the society these masters that fulfill the needs that they have in order to promote this Green Deal or this sustainable development. Here you have two examples of two of our masters. The first one is a master of circular economy, but focused on companies. And it's 4 people working in these companies because they have this need. And the other one is a master. It's an Erasmus Mundus master, and it's about smart cities and communities. Both of them with this transdisciplinary point of view, or with this transdisciplinary vision. And the second one is that both companies have to offer flexibility to the employees in order to complete their curriculum with this kind of training programs. And also from the point of view of the universities, we have to offer this lifelong learning with very flexible structures and formats. And these were my 3 points. I think that now we are going to have the opportunity of discussing these 3 points and some other ones. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Estíbaliz, for these very interesting examples. I take the advantage that you mentioned the relevance of transdisciplinary masters to mention that CHARM-EU is planning to launch one of these masters, a transdisciplinary one called Global Challenges for Sustainability. Also, thanks for pointing to the day after, this platform that seems to be a place to go to get some inspiration regarding the topic we are discussing. The last intervention in this round of interventions before we go to a debate is a recorded intervention by Fons Nielen, CEO of the Nielen Schurmans consultant firm that is specialized on water and IT. We have seen before one video pointing to one specific challenge that was food, and this second one will be focused on a second very important and key challenge regarding the topic we are dealing with, which is water. And so I would suggest to run the video now.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Fons Nielen. I'm the director of the Dutch consulting firm Nielen Schurmans. We are active in the field of water and IT, and obviously our work is closely related to the ambitions of the European Green Deal. I would like to thank you for your kind invitation to give a short presentation on our services and how we could engage with the European universities in setting up mutual research. We strongly believe that IT and data science can help us in developing resilient cities and in reducing the risks of climate change. And in this field, we like to collaborate with the universities, and therefore I believe that the CHARM-EU initiative could be a very interesting one to us. I can think of many innovations in which governments, universities and companies like ours can work together. And as an example, I will show you a flood forecasting system that we implemented last year in Australia.
Parramatta is very similar to many cities around the world. As global temperatures rise, so will the frequency of heavy and rapid onset rainfall.
The challenge with flash flooding is that it happens very quickly, and emergency responders and residents have very little time to prepare. We were aware that traditional monitoring and warning systems based on recorded rainfall levels weren't going to work in our situation. So Council looked at new methods using forecasting to gain extra lead time and give us an indication of what might happen in the future.
Requires the processing of enormous amounts of data in real time. We needed to provide Parramatta City Council with an alerting system that takes into account Bureau of Meteorology forecasting, hydraulic models, live catchment area data, live rainfall radars, live rainfall gauges and more. Accuracy was paramount so the communications and emergency services team could be confident in the information being given to them. To do this in real time requires a series of complex algorithms calculating at a speed to produce results in 15 minutes. Past models were producing results in up to 6 hours, which is just not usable in this type of application. To achieve this, we had to think completely differently. We employed 3DI, a hydraulic model that can take a catchment this large and undertake the detailed calculations to get the results you need in under 15 minutes. Now we use predicted rainfall provided by the Bureau of Meteorology to model what is going to happen, and this allows the community and the emergency services to plan their response.
Blood Smart Parameter, based on the FLASH system, allows us to be much more responsive to extreme weather events. We can quickly and easily see the impacts that heavy rainfall will have on our communities. This allows council to plan and prepare much more effectively. Before, it was how do we respond to what's happening, but now is how do we plan for what's predicted.
A system such as FLASH and other IT services lead, of course, to new research questions. How can we improve decision-making with new technology and improved insights? We hope we can work together on this and on the challenges of the Green Deal. I wish you all a pleasant meeting.
Thanks a lot. And now let's go to the debate. There are plenty of questions, but since we don't have a lot of time, I would like to group them. So I have a question for Caroline Zenit and Estíbaliz Sáenz de Cámara. It's about the role that the European Universities Initiative can have in tackling the topic we are discussing, so in meeting the challenges of the European Green Deal. Whether you see or envision any specific action that this initiative could carry out, or, for example, in terms of how to prepare students, or in terms of whatever you would like to mention. So what can the European Universities Initiative do in terms of specific actions to meet the challenges of the European Green Deal? I would start maybe with Caroline Zenit.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your question. So, as I said before, European universities can play a role in supporting the EU Green Deal by raising awareness, by fostering ownership, devising solutions that contribute to implement this agenda. But perhaps more concretely, one specific action could be to establish some sort of voluntary reporting mechanisms to identify the specific concrete contributions of Charm EU to this agenda. So this would be, in my view, I think, important for peer learning and for scaling up innovative initiatives and solutions devised within the framework of Charm EU by the students, by industries, and by civil society organizations.
To leave, so thanks for your participation, and I would like to ask the same to Estíbaliz, and also if you have any thoughts on thinking about civil society's organization, what they expect, let's say, from the academic world when dealing with the European Green Deal. So once again, what the European Universities Initiative could do on the one hand, and what civil society's organization expect.
Okay, thank you. Both questions are really interesting. For the first one, I think that the only way to prepare our students, because they are going to be in charge of the way towards a neutral and inclusive Europe in 2040, 2050, is to integrate sustainability, not only the Green Deal, sustainability with a social, economic, and environmental dimension into the curriculum. Because if not, it's going to be just a punctual action, a punctual project, and they are not going to adopt decisions, prepare projects, focus their projects considering sustainability. So for me, the only way to prepare them is to integrate it into the curricula, and into the curricula of all areas of knowledge, not only into the curricula of biology, of environmental sciences, or of psychology. It's all the degrees, all the masters, all the PhD studies. For the second one, what do civil societies, collaboration? I think that the civil society as NGOs, they want a collaboration. I think that we have, there are a lot of synergies. They need a lot of knowledge, or they have a different knowledge. We can share this kind of knowledge, as our academic knowledge and their knowledge based on traditions, on on the different values. And I think that they are willing to share with us a lot of specific and especially local projects. And I think that now with this situation, with the pandemic, we have the opportunity to start a lot of projects and collaborations with these NGOs, with the civil society, with associations.
Thanks a lot. And so now let's hear what the representatives of the external stakeholders, in fact, have to say. So I would like to ask to Jeroen, Celia, and Carlos, what do you expect from students? What are your requirements that may be used by a project like CharmEU to design these new university models? Whoever wants to answer, Jeroen, Celia, and Carlos can start, and then I ask to the other ones.
Yeah, maybe I can start. I think thinking about this in a bit more detail, what do we expect from students? I think the most probably interesting aspect of working in such a way as CharmEU is, let's say, prospecting. I think it's the problem solving, the critical thinking, the 21st century skills needed to challenge, let's say, the status quo in some of our organizations. So if I look at RICO, as I said during the talk, it's a 90,000 global organization. And I think students can challenge that status quo if they kind of use the skills like creativity or design thinking or even critical thinking or problem solving to help us get out of that status quo. I think that is really important.
Thanks. Maybe Celia?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What are your requirements?
So what I think that we have to change, fundamentally the mentality. And so this can only come from my point of view, from students that are going to get inspired by other disciplines that what we have ourselves been inspired when we were a student at their place. And if I take some examples, so so if I focus on the Green Deal by itself, so it's really company responsibility and the founders and the leaders of company to ensure that the company integrate within their DNA this long-term vision on the impact of each and every one activity on the environment and the world. And so having students with this risk analysis, and impact analysis on the environment and sustainability will bring a lot within companies. They will struggle a lot as well, but this is very important for us to integrate that type of competency. And I also want to say that it's much easier to think about impact from scratch. So when you create the company, rather than doing it once your company is built, because when you have led a company that has grown a certain way for years, it is really challenging to change business models because you have responsibility to maintain a certain level of revenues to live, just to live, and for paying your collaborators at the end of the month. And this is your absolute priority. So therefore, you rather put pads on your environment impacts rather than really foresee options for reviewing fundamentally your business model while continuing generating the minimum revenue. So with students that are educated differently, and this is what we expect with CharmEU, we expect new generation to bring solutions for sustainable and still reasonable growth, working on models for sustainable growth and regenerative business that should become a priority, I think, for those CharmEU students. So thinking differently, business model growth and sustainability will bring a lot into our company.
Thanks. Carlos, what is your take on this issue?
Thank you. And thank you. Very interesting topic opened by Celine about this complexity in the exploration and exploitation mode. When you are running a company, it is very difficult that innovation generates inside the company. Even that the managers, we have to take care of these initiatives and maybe sometimes put it aside and let them grow in parallel, because the natural trend of the companies is to kill what is different, to kill what is new. And we have reinvent ourselves continuously because maybe the innovation and the disruption is coming from outside. And I recall the words from Rico representative that he thought that he have to reinvent the way of doing of the company and the business model. So this is really a big challenge. And so this is my first skill for the students is the flexibility in front of the uncertainty. We are living in a very complex world, many changes every day. So they need to be very flexible and be able to reinvent themselves. Also, my thing is that they need to be committed with values. I appreciate very much the people that is committed with something. It doesn't matter exactly what is they commit with. Maybe the environment, maybe social aspects. Doesn't matter what, but to be passionate for everything, for anything in specific, and to be linked and committed with some values. From the hard skills, that is one of the things that the university helps and trains. I would say that each day I evaluate most the people who has a combination of environmental sciences and data scientists. So people in the future will need to have competencies in data, in thinking how my knowledge in biology or engineering or whatever, or medicine, how can I extract the information and analyze with artificial intelligence, computer vision, or whatever. So that they don't need to be experts in data analytics or in machine learning, but they have to know which are the capabilities that these kind of technologies can help to extract valuable information.
Thanks a lot. This is a very interesting insight in the relevance of being, let's say, accustomed, used to deal with data. And then I also find really interesting and in a certain sense surprising that you mention commitment, social commitment, environmental commitment as a desirable feature of a student and maybe future worker. And also to the three of you, I would like to ask whether you have in mind any specific problem, any specific topic in your company or in your area that would benefit from a more creative contribution of academia and of the university, a university that is designed along these new lines. Obviously, I'm referring to problems related to the European Green Deal, to the objectives of development, whether you could give some examples that maybe may inspire the scholars and students that are taking part in this event. Whoever of the three of you, Celia, Carlos, or Jaron, can comment, have it, whether specific problems comes immediately to your mind.
Well, I take it. Yes, quickly, and so I give a bit more time to my colleagues. And no, yes, I came to my mind. Well, many problems, but probably in these days we are dealing with green energy, and I am reading plenty of news in the newspaper about green hydrogen, which you know is probably the future of our energy, especially for transportation, and still the production cost of the hydrogen is very high. Of the green hydrogen is very high compared to gray hydrogen. So this is probably a technical challenge. The technology and hard knowledge is going to provide some value in the future.
Thanks. Any input from the other speakers? Any problem you would like to have tackled? Maybe Celia?
Yeah. You know, we are a global company. So for what we are concerned, we address a niche market. And so necessarily we have to work with the entire world. And the way we used to do business is actually to meet face-to-face with our clients, for instance. And this has, by essence, a negative impact also on the environment, because we spend our times in planes to go from one continent to another. So the sanitary crisis with COVID-19 actually has push us to work differently, a little bit differently. But I think having students that are able to think about global business on a sustainable way would help us. So how to organize operationally your business so that you diminish this this negative footprint on the environment would be very helpful.
Yes, this seems to be a pretty universal problem. Yesterday we had a session yesterday afternoon specifically on this, especially mobility in university, as how to organize it in a way that it is more sustainable. Jeroen, one last comment, whether you would put anything on the agenda?
Yeah, I would certainly be interested in the problem that Celia just raised. I think this is really a universal issue, but also within our organization. But to maybe add and answer the question. So as I said during my talk, so we're looking at energy saving of devices. So this could be something which is very pragmatic, short term, for students to look at alternatives for let's say powering our devices, using energy savings on our devices. Let's say moving forward. So that could be an area where we could, let's say, explore new innovations and opportunities. And I think the other area that, especially, of course, I've highlighted this, but with regard to this circular economy, and maybe Carlos, you and I should have an offline discussion about this as well, because of course the reuse and recycling as part of this common circle needs to be constantly enhanced. Also, and maybe this is a challenge that could be interesting for Charm EU students, is that how do you say this? Make sure that throughout the product life cycle, also using third party, so materials from supplier, so the end-to-end, let's say, sustainability of or circularity of let's say the life cycle would maybe be another challenge that we would like to put forward. So how do you manage that? How do you monitor that? How do you make sure that it is sustainable end to end, including let's say third-party products, materials, etc., that are used throughout the product life cycle.
Thanks a lot. So lot of food for thought in this session. Thanks to Caroline Seni, Jeroen Spearings, Celia Bellin, Carlos Montero, Estíbaliz Saez de Cámara, and Fons Nielen, who appeared on screen with a recorded message. Thanks to you, and we will move forward towards the next session, which focuses on research and innovation and the connection between the topic we are dealing with today, so the European Universities Initiative and the European Green Deal, with Horizon Europe, so the next framework program for research in Europe that will start next year. So after a 5 seconds pause, we will move to the next session. So, as you know, not only higher education, but also the other important relevant dimension of the academic and university activity, which is research and innovation, plays a key role in meeting the challenges of the European Green Deal. In this session, we will try to focus specifically on this aspect, the aspect of research and innovation, and more specifically on Horizon Europe, which is the next framework program for research and innovation in the European Union. In order to explore this connection between the European Universities Initiative, the European Green Deal, and Horizon Europe, we will count on an expert panel that will include Apostolia Caramali, Head of Unit of the Directorate General for Research and Innovation at the European Commission, Domenic Espriu, Project Manager of Torch, a project that is related to CHARM-EU, Christoph Fleming, which is the Senior External Funding Officer of Una Europa and the coordinator of the subgroup of research and innovation of the Forum of European Universities, Antonino Inguscio, a policy officer at the European Commission, and Ines Prates, also policy officer at the European Commission, and Barbara Koch, which is a member of the European Universities Association and part of the Albert Ludwigs University in Freiburg. So let me first start with Apostolia Caramali, which is Head of Unit at the Directorate General for Research and Innovation. Apostolia, the stage is yours. If you're there, I think we need your camera to be turned on.
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me and see me well. So thank you very much for this introduction and for inviting me to this meeting today. I think European universities have created a lot of enthusiasm in the higher education sector. And I believe also all this contribution and the angle that you are bringing today through these CHARM-EU days is extremely valuable because it has a very concrete orientation. Let me pass three main messages in these introductory remarks. First, I would like to speak a little bit on what we propose through the new European research area to support the sector. Secondly, very briefly, a few words on the research and innovation dimension of universities, the outcome of our consultation, and then say a few words about the programs Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. So let me start with the European research area. The Commission adopted a package on the 30th of September, which included the new European research area, but also the European education area and the Digital Education Action Plan, focusing very strongly on synergies between research, innovation, and education, and how we can underpin, in this particular case, the higher education sector in particular. The overall angle that we took was an angle on a vision on knowledge and how these policy initiatives can become, and the actors behind them can become actually the pillars of knowledge creation, circulation, and use. So we took it from end to end, from finding solutions to big societal challenges up to value creation and making sure that all the sector is fully supported. So the European research area in particular supports measures for research careers, measures for the ecosystem, so that the ecosystems and the actors, including the higher education sector, but also research organizations, business, they can interact together and they can better be more dynamic and better grasp the opportunities in terms of the labor market. So actions for researcher careers, for the ecosystems, then actions for the research infrastructures, fundamental for the for research and the higher education sector as well, and also actions towards gender, citizens, and the overall support to the higher education sector, focusing on developing synergies and a clear roadmap with synergies between education and research. So this is the European research area in a nutshell, as a quick message on my side. Second point, a few words about the research and innovation dimension of universities. So we have had a quite extensive consultation thus far, addressing both education needs and research and innovation needs. And what came out of this consultation, which is summarized in a study which has been recently published, but this is the outcome of a process which included a lot of workshops and interactions with the stakeholders, is that they're very important values when thinking about the future of the higher education sector, in particular academic freedom, trust in science, the importance of scientific and frontier research. On the other side, the importance of maintaining ethics, integrity and trust, equality and non-discrimination, transparency and safeguarding European values and inclusiveness in general. As outcome of this consultation, we managed to pinpoint, let's say, some building blocks of possible transformation and evolution of the higher education sector, and how we could empower the sector in this path towards addressing future challenges. And there, in particular, we identified the importance of supporting the sector in better sharing research infrastructures and resources in general, addressing the digital challenges and open science practices, specific focus on knowledge transfer between academia and business to address the labor market, importance of the human capital and researchers' working conditions in universities, the importance of broader governance issues of cooperation and addressing possible obstacles at the European level, and finally the importance of building strategic research agendas also at the level of universities. This is without prejudice, of course, to the academic freedom and institutional autonomy of universities. But when it comes to preparing the future, such as what we're discussing now, how to address the Green Deal challenges, it is very important that this is organized in terms of methodology, of course. So these are some first elements of the consultation so far. And as probably was addressed already yesterday, we will be now working in order to build these building blocks from education and research and innovation towards a higher education agenda for the future. And the Commission intends to come up with, continue the consultation and come up with proposals next year, more detailed proposals and concrete actions following these announcements in this communication. Last point on the programs, which is the focus also of the panel, through Horizon 2020, we have already taken immediate action to make sure that we mirror the pilot under Erasmus, also through Horizon 2020, in order to have grants for European university alliances, including Charming Youth through Torch, in order to develop the research and innovation dimension. We published a guidance document for this, which was broad guidance, non-prescriptive for universities, in order to make sure that we can have a comparable test bed. And as part of this guidance, we focused on the issue of research agendas, and we said that we used examples such as the pandemic and the Green Deal as areas where the universities could engage. And we're very glad that this is the outcome of today's discussion. Last point on my side, Horizon Europe has a very strong emphasis on synergies with Erasmus and continuous support to European universities. So the language is there. Nonetheless, it is our position as of today to take stock of the current pilot on European universities and make sure that we come after the midterm evaluation of the current pilot. We come with future proposals in future work programs where we continue supporting European universities and taking into account the future consultation process that I mentioned before. So we expect to see some future proposals by the end of next year and focusing on the synergetic approach. So this is in a matter of introduction on my side, and I thank you very much for this invitation.
Thanks a lot, Apostolia Caramalli, the Directorate General for Research and Innovation, and thanks for mentioning this guidance document that may be something interesting to read for our audience. Now let us move to Domenica Spriu. Domenica Spriu, he is the project manager of Torch, which is the research dimension, let's say, of CharmEU initiative. Torch means transforming open, responsible research and innovation through Charm. So, Domenica Spriu,
to
thanks
everyone,
for being here.
And thanks for being here. Thanks for, of course, inviting me to make this very short presentation. Let me share the screen. Let's see if it works. You see the presentation, right? So So this is Torch. What is Torch? Well, soon after the European University Initiative took off, it was realized that, of course, there was not real university, and of course not real European university without the research dimension. So the Commission realized that immediately, and this top-up initiative was launched to include resources for research, to give this research dimension to the European University Initiative. So what is the purpose, and what is the reason, what is the rationale that is behind our Torch proposal? You see here what is the meaning of this acronym. So transforming open, responsible research and innovation through CHARM. So we are, of course, closely related to CHARM, as it could not be otherwise. So I would summarize our purpose in 5 words. The first one is anticipate. So of course we want to teach in our courses in our European university. We want to teach what is going to come. It's important to understand the present situation. It is important to understand the past. But of course, it's more important in giving the purpose of the CHARM agenda to anticipate the possible changes, and which are and will be particularly the societal challenges that we will have. So that's one of the purpose. We want to provide this knowledge, this anticipation to fit our academic program. We want to define then the research and innovation agenda in our institutions individually, but also as a whole. We want to transform our institutions in a given way so that we align our research, at least part of our research, with the finalities, with the purposes of CHARM. We definitely want to improve the societal impact of the research outcomes that we may produce in our CHARM universities. And finally, why not, we want to influence the European science agenda. So how is the research part of CHARM, this Torch project, structure? Well, it is structured in three different blobs, we can call it 3 different blocks. So one has to do with food, water, and global health. So these are the matters that we want to study, we want to analyze. Another one, climate change, environment, biodiversity. So they are closely related subjects. And the third blob, blobs, which, by the way, are very much connected with the ingredients of CHARM, has to do with economic growth, inequalities, and governance. So we understand, of course, that all these 3 blobs that are depicted here, they are very, very closely connected to the Green Deal in one sense or another. Sometimes the connection is obvious, it's immediate. Sometimes the connection is indirect, but it's also quite clear. So basically, we are universities. We want to do research. So the first thing that we want to do is to set up a common science agenda. At least this is one of the main purposes. And the way we do it is also important, and with whom is also an important and relevant variable. So we want to do this using the tools of open science. We want to do our science widely available to everyone. Open science is one of the essential ingredients. We want to do that through a research which is responsible, and that's the other I part. Public engagement, that's another clear ingredient. We want to do that with public engagement, and we want to transfer that to the productive sector. Okay, so we want to create things. We want to our innovation and research is eventually transferred, and there is a common umbrella that we want to use to tackle with all these three blobs of knowledge, which is artificial intelligence and data science. So this is going to be our basic tool. We want that all our findings, that all the research that we possibly do is supported by the techniques, by the tools of artificial intelligence, at least to a very large extent. So our project, this is basically the topics that we want to discuss, the things that we want to tackle, is structured in the following way. First, we have these 4 items. We have our science agenda, the other I, the transfer, the research of innovation transfer, and open science. We plan to analyze the current situation in each of these aspects during the first part of the project. We want to see which is the practice in each university, to study possible gaps, the barriers, difficulties, financial aspects, and of course, which is the practice in each one of these particular lines or items in each university. After that, we will set up common policies and a strategy. That's more or less towards half of the project. And from that analysis, from that strategic plan and policies, we will set up action plans and recommendations. So these action plans and recommendations will be two-sided. On one side, they will be directed inwards. So each one of our institutions will have to change, will have to transform. Remember that transform was one of these buzzwords that I introduced in my first slide. So this has to be done internally. So each one of our institutions has to modify, has to adapt, has to align procedures in each one of these 4 items to the common plan and the common strategies. On the other hand, we want to produce a number of pilot projects. Those pilot projects are not yet totally defined. We have, of course, many ideas, but they are not totally defined because to some extent they will depend from the outcome of this analysis, of this global analysis of all the universities that are involved in chat. So for sure, part of the outcomes, apart from more tangible pilot projects, will be a number of white papers on the issues that we have been studying. And those white papers and other recommendations will be made, of course, available also to the European authorities for possible analysis. So this is in a very few words the scheme and the ideas that we have set up for this Touch project. As I said, this is the research side, the research facet of the CHAN project. So with that, I conclude this short presentation, and I thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Domènec Espriu, which is Vice Rector of Research of the University of Barcelona and Project Manager of Torch. Thanks for introducing the Torch project. And now we move to Christoph Fleming, which is Senior External Funding Officer of Una Europa, an alliance of 8 universities, 8 European universities, of course, and the coordinator of the subgroup of research and innovation at the Forum of European University. Christoph Fleming, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. I'm going to first say something about my role and also go a little bit deeper into what that informal group is and what we do. And then, so I'm going to share my screen here as well. So good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending in which time zone you are. So I will say a little bit something about Una Europa first. So indeed, we're 8 universities spread over Europe. Here you see the list of the 8 universities that that are involved in Una Europa. And the ultimate goal of Una Europa is to enhance the quality of education and research to make a meaningful contribution to society. So we are creating a truly European inter-university environment where outstanding research is continuously linked to transnational learning and innovative critical thinking. It's based on 3 pillars, let's say. So we want to be a university of the future. Where we were selected as one of the first ones of the European Universities initiatives. But we want to become a sustainable, research-intensive university that is open and inclusive. Sustainable here has to be looked into not into environmental sustainability, but self-sustainable, let's say. We created a joint legal entity to support or to foster that sustainability, the Una Europa VZW, and I'm part of that association. The 8 universities want to have impact at all levels, so we aim to have impact across all 3 interconnected levels of the university mission. So Una Europa, or the universities of Una Europa, are not only institutions for education, not only for research, not only for service to society, but combining these 3 things. And that is something I would like to come back to later on to make the link with the Horizon Europe and the Green Deal. So now I'm going to say something about the informal group of European universities. So the informal group is a group of 17 alliances from the first Erasmus Plus pilot call. Here you can see the 17 alliances that are involved, and as you can see, Charm EU is also part of that informal group. The group meets virtually once every 4 weeks for 1.5 hours on Monday, and the initiative is initiated by Olga Wessels from ECIU, and so kudos to Olga for putting us together even before it was actually requested by the European Commission. So she did a lot of work, and she's still doing a lot of effort to put us together and to make a success of this informal group. The idea is to discuss, share information, and share experience, and to be able to speak as one voice. So that's also the advantage of being an informal group, that it allows us to discuss in an open way what's on our mind, and see where there are connections between the different alliances. Within the informal group, so within the big informal group, 5 subgroups were established. So one on project management, another one on European degree, a third one on legal entity, one on multilingualism, and then a last one, which is chaired by myself, on research and innovation policy. So the subgroup on research and innovation has, the objective of that group is to follow the developments of the research and innovation part of the European Universities Initiative. Our scope is to share information and exchange ideas on research and innovation within our university alliances. The subgroup has also the ambition to be a reliable partner to the European Commission and to give input to relevant DGs where possible. Since we represent, in a way, the 17 alliances, it gives us a decent critical mass to reach out to the European Commission and say, okay, these are the issues that we're dealing with. Can we work together on this? On the other hand, for the European Commission, it's an easy way in. It's a one door stop, so they can reach out to the group and then immediately reach out to all of us. So we have virtual meetings for maximum 2 hours, and every alliance can select up to 3 participants to take part in the meeting. And the agenda setting is a common effort. So doesn't mean that I'm taking the lead in this group, that I have to do all the work. The idea is a little bit that that everybody is involved, so a little bit a commons approach when it comes to setting up this subgroup. So that gives a little bit the idea of what Una Europa is and what a subgroup is. And to finish, I would like to share 2 points, things that are important to the European universities alliances in general when it comes to Horizon Horizon Europe. A first thing that we would like to ask is that we are informed on time what is expected from us. So our universities, our institutions, they are very big, and it's our objective from all the alliances to get everybody on board within the universities, but that also takes a bit of time to get everybody mobilized. So we would like to ask from the Commission to give us enough time to get prepared. So inform us in advance what's in the pipeline, so that we can get everybody on board on time, and that we also can deliver the best quality possible, and also deliver to what is expected. So that's the first point. And then the second point that I have that I would like to transfer is that sorry, I'm a bit lost in my story here. I apologize. Okay, I'm going to leave it till here. I had another point when I was preparing and I forgot it. But let's say that most important part is that we would like to be a reliable discussion partner of the Commission, and that it would be nice to know what's in the pipeline. Now I know what the second point is. My apologies for losing the story. So I'm going to leave it here. Sorry.
Thanks a lot. If in the end you want to add anything else, there will be opportunity in the debate, but thanks especially for making such a clear requirement to the Commission. We have representatives of the Commission, and what you pointed out seems to be really, really relevant to make everything effective. And so the next presentation will be a joint presentation by 2 policy officers, in fact, at the European Commission, Antonino Inguscio and Ines Prates. I would like to invite them to join together and start the presentation whenever they feel free, and whoever wants to start. Okay? Thanks.
Ines, shall I very quickly?
Sure.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Now, just arrived, and thank you very much for having us together with you today. It's really a pleasure because we both think the transition really has obviously an impact mostly on the matters for the next generations, and so of course working with universities is always a pleasure. Regarding the questions for the European Commission, I think I leave them to people that are higher on the pay grade level, so Leah Caramali will have to take those. From my side, I just wanted to frame very briefly the presentation also of Ines, to say that essentially, as you all know, we're really like living in extremely exciting times, and it's an extremely exciting time also to be choosing what degree to graduate in and what research stream to pursue and so forth, right? So this turns into very exciting times for universities as well. We are, of course, witnessing what we can call a race to the top in terms of climate ambition, right? So we felt a little bit lonely as the European Union plus UK last year in announcing our objectives for climate neutrality by 2050. But, you know, in the matter of a short few months, we've been joined by Japan, Korea, China. Now we hope, of course, with Biden to have a new ambitious commitment from the US, and the recommitting of the US to the climate agreement. So, you know, we were a few dreamers, but not so few anymore, right? So this brings me to the second point of my intervention, with is really like this question of competitiveness, with these questions of trying to stay on the top of the global competition, right? So when the European Green Deal was adopted by the European Commission, by the European Union, really there was this strong idea that it would be a new growth strategy for the Union. And in fact, in light of the pandemic, more than ever, really this dimension of growth, competitiveness, prosperity of the Green Deal assumes a very important role. So essentially, at the time of our announcements, we all know, right, in the background documents for the European Green Deal and so forth, we were very excited to see, that green transition is a great opportunity for European businesses and universities, because if you look at the biggest companies by share price at the global level, you know that the first 20 are not Europeans. But if instead you turn to companies that operate in this field, you see that 75% are European, right? And so we use this possibility of a Green Deal also to try and move the playing field in a way that is a little bit more beneficial for us. On the other end, we know that our main competitors, China, the US, just to name a couple, are going to catch up incredibly fast. And in order to stay in the race, really to guide the race and to contribute to it as much as we can, we really need a role of top-level research and top-level education at the level of European universities. And furthermore, and to conclude my part of the intervention, in reflecting with my colleague Ines, we were really thinking about the fact that the European universities, especially the networks that you guys have just presented, have this fantastic characteristic, right, of really bringing the possibility of a real inclusive and share transition towards a green future. And of course, we know how access to European universities has been the subject, of course, of a lot of policy in recent years, and also the fact that we can beneficially learn from each other's in our diversity, right? So it's very exciting to see all these networks of universities bringing together solutions from different parts of the European Union. With this, I wish you a fantastic day of work, and I hand the mic to my colleague, Ines. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Agostino, and good afternoon, everyone. So I wanted to pick up on Agostino's point about the role of education and European universities in the Green Deal. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the role of actually scaling up the capacity of our skilled workforce to tackle challenges such as the European Green Deal. And with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about my personal experience, because not too long ago, I was also graduating from a European university program, the EIT No Energy Master's Program, focused on the energy transition. And what's brilliant about this program is that you have basically students from all over the world coming to Europe, studying in two different European universities, in my case, Barcelona and Stockholm universities, with two very different education systems, but you're basically establishing a very diverse and talented network of young graduates who are very motivated to tackle Europe's and the world's biggest challenges. So I think that's actually one of the most brilliant things of initiatives such as CHARM. Then I would like to talk a little bit actually about the EU program opportunities for universities to actually contribute with their research and innovation capacities to help deliver on the Green Deal. I'd like to talk to you about the last but also biggest Horizon 2020 call that we have, the Green Deal call. You're probably very familiarized with it already, but so just to mention that one of the main areas of intervention is strengthening knowledge. And in that we have 3 different topics, and I highly encourage you to look them and to apply to them by January 26th. I'm also available to try to clarify any questions if there is any questions on this in the discussion space. And then, of course, for Horizon Europe, there's a big talk on the Green Deal missions. So basically, there are 5 mission areas proposed for Horizon Europe, and 4 of them tackle directly the European Green Deal. And essentially, these are supposed to be very ambitious, tackling Europe's and the world's biggest challenges related to climate change, biodiversity restoration, and environmental challenges. And basically, innovation, experimentation, learning from knowledge, and knowledge sharing are all super crucial activities to help deliver on these missions. And obviously, universities in Europe have a very, very big role to play here as well. So without further ado, I thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Agostino Inguscio and Ines Prates. And now I would move to the last speakers of our session before we go to the debate, Barbara Koch at Albert Ludwig University in Freiburg, member of the European Universities Association Energy and Environment Platform. Thanks, Barbara Koch.
Thank you for inviting me. I also want to share my slides with you. Just a moment. Share the screen. Can you see the slides? I hope.
Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
No? Why is this? No?
Not yet.
Hmm.
So maybe when you search for the slides and share the screen, you can follow the instructions on the screen.
I did. First, you have to share. That was the instruction. Share the screen. And then you have to press on the slide. Do you see it now?
Unfortunately, I'm afraid no.
I don't know.
Maybe if you want to take some time to look for it, I can summarize where we are in the day, so you can have maybe 1 minute or so to look for it. After this, the closing speech in this session, we will enter in a debate in which we will try to focus on a set of topics related to the role of research and innovation. So first of all, what we can expect from Horizon Europe in terms of driving and pushing forward these European Green Deal challenges. For example, a key feature I would like the speakers to comment on is the fact that 35% of the budget of Horizon Europe is meant to be spent on climate change. But of course, there is a set of requirements, and we have seen one, for example, being informed with the sufficient advance that has been mentioned by Christoph Fleming in order to meet this challenge. After that, we will go to a closing session in which we will have one speaker for each one of the clusters that were discussed yesterday afternoon. And this will help us to set the agenda, basically to comment on what are the expected next steps. And then after that, we will go to the closing remarks of the day. So I think now the presentation by Barbara Koch is ready. I can see it at least, and so I would give the floor to her to hear her speech.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that it took some time. Okay, I first want to introduce myself. You already did an introduction, and I want to add that I also director of the Upper Rhine Cluster for Sustainability Research. Why do I mention it? Because there we have already a network of different universities. It's called EUCOR, and this is a very important network and is, according to what was discussed now, very much of what we expect in future. The University of Freiburg also is a Epicure University. That means there is a pilot for the European universities. Just to introduce myself more completely. Okay. So now I have the honor to represent the European universities, the EUA, Energy and Environment Platform, or the European University Association. First, I would like to introduce the European University Association. There are 850 members in this association based in 48 countries. The main objectives of the European University Association are facilitate dialogue on higher education and research, represents the interests of higher education sector, ensures the voice of universities in the heart of EU policy making and in the EHEA, and support its member with a range of services. The organization of the European University Association is such that at the bottom we have the expert groups, which are providing the content or the expertise to the research policy working group. And aside, there is the EUA Council for Doctoral Education, a steering committee, and this gives input then to the European University Association Board and to the European University Association Council. The European University Association has produced a number of papers, position papers for Horizon Europe, joint policy positions for Horizon Europe, and policy positions for research and innovation. So it's quite active. So what are the challenges? We already heard today a lot about the challenges with the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, it's very important to see in this front of these challenges that there is not anymore a clear line between universities, higher education, society, research institutes, or companies, because we need for the future to work on these grand challenges, we need very strong networks which integrates the universities, the higher education. So what are the challenges ahead? The challenges ahead are new technologies and ways of working require new skills. How can we implement these kind of new skills also in universities? One way would be the living labs, because in the living labs, you're always confronted with the real world. You work together with organizations and companies outside of the universities, and there you can train new skills. Second challenge, curricula, learning and teaching need to adapt. So we have new teaching forms like service-based learning, problem-based learning, research-focused learning. So these new instruments have to be integrated into the curricula. Then expansion of research-based learning, entrepreneurship, and innovation skills. As I already mentioned before, this is very important that we have these new instruments and new ways of teaching our students and of integrating their skills into the real world. Then ability to work with trans, inter, and multidisciplinary challenges and teams. What is the future? The future is that we put the problem in the middle. And then we ask ourselves, okay, this is the problem. What kind of disciplines, expertise do we need? And this is not only the expertise from the universities, it's very important, but it's also the expertise coming from outside, from the society, or also from companies. Then require holistic systemic perspectives, complex societal challenge of energy. And interface, what we need is interface, or challenges are interface between technical solutions and society needs have to be considered. As I already said, this can be implemented in form of living labs, because then automatically technical solutions meet societal needs. And finally, need for specialized experts and scientists. So the challenge in future is much more that we network and interact between scientists from universities and those experts outside from universities, also coming out of society or companies and so on. So universities play a critical role in training and supply of skilled workforce. This is very important because it's not anymore different worlds. We have to network together to face the challenges. So what is the changing role of universities? One role is upgrade and innovate own programs. So we have to adapt the curricula of the universities to the challenges. Listen to societal industry needs and collaborate. As I already mentioned, which happens in living labs, for example. Modernize learning and teaching. Break down disciplinary barriers. And we need more flexibility, because not everything is solved in a typical 3 years research project. We need long-term perspectives to really face these challenges. And I also want to add, what is the strength of Europe? The strengths, we will have a competition about resources. And in this competition about resources, the strength of Europe is the brain resource. And this we always have to keep in mind. Then the role, we also have to see the role of universities in regional innovation ecosystems. One of these examples is the OICOR network. These are a network of regional universities in the Upper Rhine Valley, from France, from Switzerland, and from Germany. And this very strong network, of course, impacts the regional innovation in the Upper Rhine Valley, but also can then network with universities within Europe or even outside of Europe. Transformation of roles, innovation as a core mission of universities. So I want to summarize: education, teaching and learning reforms to promote problem-solving skills and entrepreneurial mindset. Then knowledge exchange is important. I summarize business facilitation and network orchestration. And finally, research, emphasize on collaborative interdisciplinary research. And I leave you with some questions at the end. Are academics who translate their research results into technological solutions? Are these the academics? Who is doing the feasibility studies and implementations, who is involved there? To what extent do students need entrepreneurial modules in their bachelor's and master's to develop social innovations? Are technical and entrepreneurial skills evenly spread among these profiles? These are some questions I want to put forward for the University Association to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara Koch. Maybe we could address some of these questions or hear the feedback of the other speakers to some of these questions in the debate that is coming up now. So I would like to start with Lia Karamali, with Apostolia Karamali. First of all, there have been a very specific question by Christoph Fleming about, or requirement, let's say, about the importance of receiving the information with the sufficient advance in order to roll out what is required on time. Maybe if you want to comment on that, feel free. Anyway, my question was related to Erasmus and Horizon Europe. Whether it may be a good idea to obtain more impactful outcomes by carrying out joint calls that may be aligned with the Green Deal and, for example, trigger a better interaction between students and researchers. So it would be basically these 2 points, whether you want to comment on the requirement by Christoph Fleming and then the issue of joint calls, Erasmus, Horizon Europe, sorry.
Okay, let me try to take these 2 points. Let me just say that I was momentarily disconnected, so I hope I captured all the facets of the questions. Otherwise, don't hesitate to come back. So first of all, on the timing ahead and informing the European University Alliances, we have already started interacting, and this will become even more structured in the future, especially with the Research and Innovation Working Group of the first 17 alliances. This will become even more structured in the future as we start deploying the projects under Horizon 2020, the research part of European University Alliances, which we expect to do at the latest, let's say, beginning next year. By spring next year, we hope to have all projects up and running. And in the meantime, of course, we interact through the existing mechanisms that exist through the Research and Innovation Working Group in particular. So this is on how we do that. Secondly, on the timing, which are the next steps that we envisage? As I was saying before, we envisage first evaluating the first outcomes of this pilot. And here I take a very broad approach. My point is not project specific, but rather with regard to the full initiative. So we're currently analyzing how we will proceed in order to do this. And definitely this will be a transparent and inclusive process. And in addition to this evaluation part, we also plan, as I was saying before, as announced in the communications on the European Research Area and European Education Area, we plan to engage into a broad consultation session with the sector, building on the outcomes of what we have already analyzed for education and research and innovation. So expect to have a lot of interaction from our side next year. And so both specific to the European University Alliances and more general to the higher education sector, in order to think what concrete actions we can have. So therefore, there will be ample time. So to reply to the first question, there will be ample time to provide feedback on planned actions and consult, especially through an inclusive process. Second point, very specific on the question that you raised with regard to synergies between Horizon Europe and Erasmus. Today, we already implement synergies. I understand that it's maybe suboptimal from the beneficiary side because you find yourselves with two parallel grants, but already this is a synergy in the sense that we are addressing the education and research innovation dimension, addressing the same test bed. for the future, having joint calls with Erasmus is one of the options that we are analyzing. And there is time to do that because, as I was saying at my introductory remarks, the idea is that we do not launch calls immediately, but we rather wait and take stock, at least for next year, of the outcome of the current pilot before we launch actions in the future work programs of Erasmus and Horizon Europe. You know that for the moment in Horizon Europe, we work on the basis of biennial work programs. So we are busy preparing the work program 21 and 22 for the moment. Then this means that we can anticipate that the joint approach could probably be launched as of 2023. Addressing both, let's say, the Erasmus part and Horizon Europe part. And in the legal basis, we have a very strong support for that because this is explicitly mentioned. There is explicit reference to the European universities.
Thanks for giving us a clear timeline. I hope this has answered the comment by Christoph Fleming. Otherwise, feel free to just comment. Okay, so precisely, I would like to ask broad questions to Christoph Fleming, Domenico Espriu, and Barbara Koch. Whether you could elaborate a little bit more of the sort of research, the kind of research that is required to basically to meet the European Green Deal challenges. I mean, in all your talks, there have been some input, but I would like you to elaborate more on, in the end, on the key topic of this session. What kind of research is required to achieve these objectives? Whoever wants to start, between Domenico Espriu, Barbara Koch, and Christoph Fleming.
I may start if you wish.
Yes, please.
Well, I think that the key ingredient here is multidisciplinarity and transversality. Our universities, of course, have a wide spread of professors working in many disciplines, and many, if not most of them, they excel in their own field of expertise. But we have sense in here at Barcelona, and I'm sure that this is not the only place where this problem is felt, is this lack of interconnection and sometimes this lack of interdisciplinarity among various disciplines. And it is clear that for something like the Green Deal and all the challenges that Europe and, as a matter of fact, mankind is facing in these times, we need that. There is no answer to any of the problems that can be solved only on the basis of a particular, let's say, biology or ecology. No, we need the participation of many other agents. And this, which is true for every single institution, every single university, is also true and at the collaborative level, in an alliance like CHARM, where we have 5 leading research institutions. It's clear that there is a lot to be gained by aligning our respective agendas. So this is absolutely essential. There is going to be a lot of energy. There is going to be a lot of multiplication of this effort, and logically, it's one should expect to have also multiplication of the outcomes. So I think that the key work is this multidisciplinarity.
Thanks, Barbara Koch, Christoph Fleming. Do you want to comment?
I can maybe go next. So I think I agree totally what was said. Interdisciplinarity is very important and is also on the agenda of the Association of European Universities. For me, it's also very important, the transdisciplinarity. That means there are a lot of questions outside in the society and in the economy. And I think we as researchers at the universities have to take them up, have to formulate research questions out of it, and have to do our research in teaching along these questions. I think this is very important. We all know that there was really a difference between the university world and the society. And I think we have to learn that we grow together and that we take up these questions which are outside there, and then we formulate our research questions, and we also carry it into teaching, because that's for me also very important to have these teaching and education on board.
Great, thanks. Christoph Fleming, your thoughts on this? I think your microphone is off. If you can turn it on, please.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I can only reiterate what my colleague said. So we have to move away from the silo thinking, not only between the disciplines, but also between research and innovation on one hand and education on the other hand. So that's also why I was very happy with the answer of Apostoli Caramali when she said that there will be one call for both research as for education, so towards the European universities. So I was very happy with that answer.
Great, thanks a lot. Now, I would like to ask to Agostino Inguscio and Ines Prates something about some specific ideas on how the new Horizon Europe program could help move forward the Green Deal in interaction with universities. So the three ingredients are always, we are going around the same three subjects, which is the Horizon Europe, the European Green Deal, and the European Universities Initiative. Whether you have in mind any specific ways in which these three elements could enter, in which the European universities can take advantage of Horizon Europe to move forward towards the objectives of the European Green Deal. Any example or any advice or anything you would like to see somehow in this direction? I think Ines is having some trouble with connection, so maybe Antonino could start. Agostino could start.
Yes, I can start. Ines will be better placed, but I'm sure she will join. She will be with us shortly. Well, so the whole thing with Horizon Europe is that basically they put at the center of the agenda this idea of co-creation, right? And this idea of like exploring solutions that can really work and be scalable at every level. So from this point of view, the involvement of the European universities and students as well, right? Because we see more and more projects that also involve students and pre-doc researchers as well, would be quite crucial. And I think, as Ines was mentioning, for instance, starting with still Horizon 2020, but starting with the Green Deal call, you see that there is much more this sort of maturity of understanding that essentially the transition to be successful has to be done in connection essentially with local realities. And, universities have this capacity, I found, right? So on one side, if I think about my maternal country, Italy, so on one side, they really are very strongly embedded in the local level, right? So this is something that for us is very crucial. And on the other side, they think big, right? They think global solutions. So, they can allow us, they can help us through Horizon Europe program to bring together these two dimensions, the global and the local dimensions. And on the other, from the perspective, instead of Horizon Europe, I think, as Ines was saying, and I think I will leave it to her to delve more in the specifics. I think the most exciting thing that I've seen happening from the Horizon Europe perspective is this idea, this different concept, essentially, of doing research and innovation together with some goals to solve societal challenges in the missions approach. And I know that the mission approach really delves a lot on this issue of how to organize and involve communities, and so networks such as the ones discussing today are crucial. But on the missions, I leave the word to Ines, and on anything else, of course.
Okay, great. Ines, since you had some connection problem, do you want me to repeat my question? Maybe.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Did you?
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So I was asking about basically how can the universities can take advantage of Horizon Europe with the specific objective of meeting the requirements and the objectives of the European Green Deal? Which aspects of Horizon Europe can be best, let's say, exploited by the universities towards this objective?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. So yes, I think what Agostino was saying in terms of the Horizon Europe missions is very relevant for universities, in the sense that essentially, yes, we need to create these structures to help accelerate the systemic transition, and this means involving everybody, and this means also taking expertise not only from academia and research, but also from citizens, from stakeholders, from businesses. And this is why I think Horizon Europe missions have great added value here, because actually you create these platforms, these living labs, these pilots for creating knowledge and testing solutions at local level with local stakeholders. So in this sense, I think Horizon Europe missions will actually allow for European universities and these initiatives of a broad network across the EU to actually help accelerate solutions and spread and disseminate knowledge. So this is one thing. And of course, we cannot forget the Green Deal call, which is still part of Horizon 2020, but it's 1 billion euros to help develop solutions to tackle the Green Deal challenges. And in that, there is a topic on strengthening knowledge. So then obviously that's also something, an instrument that European universities should look into to contribute. Then another aspect of the Green Deal where universities can actually contribute, and that I didn't mention before, is actually making sure that mobility programs are sustainable. So how can we make Erasmus, Marie Curie, all these programs climate neutral, and how can we make the mobility, which is such an important and useful aspect of European universities, how can we make these mobility components sustainable and climate neutral? So yeah, just some food for thought.
Okay, thanks for these ideas. We have almost finished, so I just wanted to ask a comment maybe to Apostolia Caramali and Domenech Expriu. So we have both the side of the Commission and the side of universities on this number, this percentage. I understand that there is this 35% of the Horizon Europe allocated to fighting climate change, and I would like to hear from your point of view, what are the necessary conditions to make this effective, to make this really work, to make that this 35% really goes into something that then ends up having an impact on climate change and so, of course, on the objectives of the European Green Deal. What are the conditions, what are the requirements that you would like to say are essential for this to be met? And in general, a comment on this quite remarkable percentage. Maybe Apostolia Caramali?
Thank you. Let me start. If you allow me, let me comment very briefly on my previous comment, just to clarify that I cannot announce today that there will be a joint call Erasmus Horizon Europe. However, I was saying that we are working into the evaluation of what we're doing now, and one of the objectives or one of the options we are looking into, but this has to be confirmed in future work programs, is the possibility of a joint call, because we understand this is also very this would be extremely useful, let's say, for the beneficiaries and for serving the scope. So just to clarify this point. The second point I would like to add before addressing the 35% issue is just pick up very briefly on the points raised by Barbara Koch and other speakers, that the institutional transformation of the sector and all the points on skilling students, skilling researchers, how institutions organize themselves with respect to the knowledge of surrounding ecosystems or the cooperation with academia in terms of skills need and skills delivery, a better structured approach to all these institutional aspects, we think is key next to the thematic research, which is extremely fundamental. In other words, we see that the future of the sector should be some sort of a matrix between institutional transformation and a clear thematic focus in terms of societal challenges addressed in an interdisciplinary approach, as already addressed by the previous speakers. Just to concur on this point. Going now to the 35%. First of all, this is not new. Already under Horizon 2020 and the current multi-annual financial framework of the Commission, we have already set ourselves this objective. Probably we have managed this, I think we have managed to reach the objectives, however, probably with an approach that was not extremely targeted when it came to themes. So from an administrative point of view, it was addressed, but probably we need to improve for the future. That's why we have currently engaged into a discussion internally with the Commission and stakeholders, and I'm sure my colleague, my other colleagues from the Commission can also comment that, on how we can transform this objective into a meaningful objective, as you said. So this will definitely require having a long-term vision of what kind of impacts we want to achieve and how we work backwards in order to make sure that we organize ourselves for the different building blocks and the different targets we want to achieve concretely through the different parts of collaborative research. This is probably new with respect to what we're currently doing under Horizon 2020, where we have a lot of effort, and especially with this last call, we send a very strong signal on the areas and the new approach, bridging towards the next framework program. So just to sum up, we definitely need to make a leap forward in terms of making concrete objectives and methodology in terms of the impacts we want to achieve, which have to match the political impacts, and then working backwards with a clear, concrete methodology and sequencing of the actions in order to meet those objectives. And definitely this last call is a very good bridge towards the future. And last point on my side, it's definitely a platform in order to actually accelerate also the institutional transformations needed for the sector and empowering universities to meet the challenges of the future functionally. Better access to infrastructures, better researchers, better learning and teaching, all the digitization efforts that are done are essential in order to actually perform even better in reaching our objectives. Citizen science mentioned by Barbara Koch earlier on. These are fundamental aspects that have to be built in addition to all the thematic focus. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Maybe the last word for Domenico Espriu, and then we pass to the following section.
Yes, well, talking about the European budget is always a very complicated subject. We usually get very nice words from Brussels, very interesting plans, very good ideas, very nice resolutions. At the end, this often is not accompanied with the proper budget. You know, the research universities in Europe, we are very concerned about the current multi-annual financial framework. We started asking for 120 billion. At the end, the current budget for Horizon Europe is less than 85 billion, and that's a substantial call. That if you look at things like Pillar 1, actually becomes less than the present budget when you take into account the reduction from 28, 27 countries. So you know, the Green Deal, of course, is something that we are absolutely in favor. It's absolutely crucial, is absolutely needed at this moment. But we have to make sure that we have the necessary resources. You know, nice words they are not enough. So the purposes of the Commission, I think, that were not followed by the European Council. So the presidents and prime ministers did not support this ambitious budget. We hope that something, although we are not terribly optimistic, we hope that something can be done at the level of the European Parliament. So my message here would be that money unfortunately matters also when it comes to the Green Deal, and we cannot be really satisfied with the present situation. In particular, we would like to see the Pillar 1 much reinforced, and the role of the next generation European Union projects clarified, which at present moment we see it a bit murky.
Okay, so you have really set a very interesting agenda of topics to follow up. So how the story will end in the Parliament, and also this very important extra funding coming with the Next Generation Europe, how it will impact all this. Okay, so thanks a lot. Thanks Apostolia Caramalli. Thanks Domenica Spriu. Thanks Christoph Fleming. Thanks Agostino Induscio and Ines Prates. Thanks Barbara Koch. And it has been a quite inspiring session. We have heard about interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity. Once again, it has been a key concept in the last few days, and as a key instrument for universities to meet these objectives. We have heard about networking, of course, and also we have heard about, let's say, something that is specific of universities, which is this connection between the local and the global, which makes them very suitable to meet the missions that are part of the current research framework, the Horizon Europe, and specifically those missions that are more strictly related to the European Green Deal. So now we will have a short break, and then we will go on with a closing session in which the rapporteurs of the green clusters that were carried out last afternoon will share their results and comment on the next steps. And then we will have the closing remarks of the Charm EU days. Now we are approaching the end of the Charm EU days. It has been a really nurturing intellectual experience, and we want to take advantage of the discussions that took place in the in the last afternoon. So the green clusters, this focused discussion on specific topic, to identify the path forward. What are the next steps that Charm EU could take, and in general, the European Universities Initiative could take. So I would start with the first green cluster that was titled Towards Transdisciplinary Networks to Solve Global Challenge. The rapporteur from this cluster is Jan Harhuis of Utrecht University. So I welcome Jan Harhuis, and please feel free to start whenever you want.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity to give a short reflection on the meeting yesterday about transdisciplinary networks to solve global challenges. During this network, we had about 60 to 40 participants, which is a nice number. And we started with Jemo Silvan, who presented an overview of the fundamentals of Charm Youth Master Program, briefly explained the idea of transdisciplinary educational principles and what competencies and skills we expect students to achieve. The aim of this session was to create an expanded network, connecting KCT core team academics with external stakeholders, and to collect ideas of problem spaces and challenges we can use for the modules of our master program. Charm EU has described educational principles like student-centered, technology-engaged, transversal skills, skills like creativity, entrepreneurship, communication, and design thinking. All activities are focused on active learning. Therefore, we use in our session new active online tools to activate the participants. It's practice what you preach. The tooling we used, Icebreaker, in combination with Padlet, was really interesting, but relatively new, and not for every participant it worked even smoothly. We are sorry for that, though we collected some interesting problem spaces in the Padlet. We know that the group of external stakeholders is much larger than the participants during our meeting, and we will discuss with the KCT core teams to set up a comparable network event like yesterday for each of the teams: water, food, life and health. Therefore, we can give other stakeholders who were not able to join yesterday's session the possibility to get connected to Charm EU community. And we collect further new ideas of problem spaces and challenges. We also set up a survey for the participants, especially the external stakeholders, to find out in what way and to what extent they want to join in modules of our master program. It is for us very important to collect this information and to set up a good relationship and build a community with this broad expanded network. We would like you very much to fill out this survey. And if you have any further questions or suggestions, please let us know. And then the last thing I would like to mention is the student, Monica Sketborg, who was a presenter during the introduction session yesterday. And she was from the ESU. And she made some interesting comments and suggestions about the relationship with students. And I would like to emphasize that we really would like to collaborate with students as well. And we like to invite students to collaborate and to get involved as co-creators for our Charm EU Master Program. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Yesterday's session focused on the sustainability dimension of mobility within European universities, both from a practical and a conceptual point of view. The aim of the session was to rethink our mobility practices, to discuss the most urgent steps to be taken for more sustainable mobilities, and to give recommendations to the Charm EU Alliance on how to conceptualize, organize, and implement its mobility scheme in a sustainable way. Our first speaker was Nathalie Modjeska from the Muse International Programme in Montpellier University. She addressed international mobility sustainability and was looking at the possibilities, challenges, and alternatives. Muse, which is a project coordinated by Montpellier, gathers 19 institutions to tackle 3 major intertwined sustainability challenges in the fields of agriculture, environment, and health. The project gives rise to international mobility, so they had to ask themselves how to balance mobility with its associated impacts and sustainability. A working group examined the issues from multiple angles and were able to see that there are as many ways to define sustainable mobility as there are to count the carbon footprint of a journey. What was clear is that they did not want to block all international mobility. One of the standout points was that a policy adopted to offset carbon from mobility was quickly described as greenwashing. So in the most recent iteration of the project's mobility policy, the focus is to first to avoid, then to reduce, and as a last resort, offset carbon produced from mobility. Startlingly enough, we have to recognize that 80% of travel in a university is from professors. And also of note is that at an institutional level, local commuting produces more greenhouse gases than international mobility. International mobility can't therefore be seen as a scapegoat. Other sources of environmental impact must be taken into account. Our second session was delivered by Simone Hackett, a virtual exchange and COIL expert from the Hague University of Applied Sciences. She discussed how virtual exchange and collaborative online international learning, COIL, is an inclusive, sustainable way to internationalize higher education. The session began with a very useful explanation of the terms in use and distinguished how COIL involves academics and students who are geographically separated, collaborating together online. With virtual exchange and COIL, the importance for educators and students are the competences that are developed. In terms of students, only 10 to 22% of them actually do go on a physical mobility. So we need to figure out how to provide the other 78 to 90% of students with an international experience. COIL is one means of doing so. Even with only 10 to 22% of students engaging in physical mobility, the emissions have been calculated as being comparable to a country the size of Croatia. It isn't feasible or sustainable to send everyone abroad, so more research and empirical evidence is needed to show that COIL and virtual exchange can provide more students with an alternative international experience and develop their competences, so should therefore be embedded as an option in the curriculum. COIL should not be perhaps seen as a stepping stone to increasing physical mobility. It would be best to look at it as an alternative. The next presentation was from Tessa Schutz, an Erasmus and Support Officer from Utrecht University. And Utrecht itself has set the ambition of being carbon neutral by 2030. To achieve that, they've put in place a green travel grant, one of a raft of measures, which also includes reducing the number of flights staff and students take and allocating extra travel days to students and staff who take a slower but greener option to reach their destination. Working with the university's Green Office, the Erasmus Office targets students going on exchange in Europe. Grants of up to €185 are available for students to take greener travel options such as rail, and the goal is for 75% of students to use those grants. There's strong demand, but unfortunately this year wasn't a brilliant year to implement it since all mobility had to be cancelled. The student perspective was brought into the panel thanks to Marenta Middelhoff, a Green Office student employee in Utrecht, but also somebody who has gone on mobility to Waseda University in Japan and took the option of traveling back on land, a journey that took over 7 days and spanned continents. The student's perspective was very useful in showing us that mobility is important for students and young professionals for their personal and professional development. It helps to combat xenophobia. Universities must be exemplary and students will be critical if expectations are not met. Students want to encourage and follow green behavior that is modeled to them. Universities and alliances matter. Together we have a greater impact, so harmonization of practices is important. The student agreed wholeheartedly that bringing the 80 or so % of students who do not go on physical mobility on board is necessary, so COIL could be an attractive solution in that respect. The conclusions that the group drew upon in their cluster are that unfortunately the situation is very complex and there is a need for more research and debate to reach a conclusion on this important topic, especially in the current context. The topic of mobility's impact needs to be discussed, but it shouldn't shoulder all the blame. Intercultural exchange is invaluable and hence the importance of considering virtual exchange. Discussions should make sure to include the student perspective since the next generation will inherit the planet we leave them. and hopefully a way can be found to balance the desire to increase student mobility while addressing its sustainability impact. In terms of recommendations, the group would bring forward, they would suggest, as mentioned, bringing students into discussions and the decision-making process, driving awareness-raising campaigns for greener mobility, systematically calculating the carbon footprint of mobility, and rewarding the most virtuous mobility with green travel grants, for instance, and using innovative mobility, including virtual exchange, such as COIL. They felt that junior staff should be favoured over senior staff who may potentially benefit more from the international exposure mobility offers. Likewise, they would encourage and facilitate homogeneous practices and institutional sustainable policies, especially in a consortium or alliance. Offsetting as a last resort should be significant and locally put in place, for instance, by favouring students' green initiatives. A strong recommendation is made for CHARM to aspire to a similar sustainable travel policy for staff and student mobility, not just within the alliance, but also beyond. Likewise, mobility needs to be looked at fully, not just the actual travel component. A green mindset is needed for everything we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this in-depth summary that also points out the many dimensions of university mobility, the local one and the large scale, and also the how it is distributed along the development of academic career. All these dimensions really help us to see the problem much clearer. So let us now go to the conclusion of the third cluster, the cluster of inclusiveness, ensuring that no one will be left behind. And this will be summarized by Agnes Saroltas Fazekas, PhD leader at CHARM EU Work Package 6 on inclusiveness at the Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest. So please, Agnes, it's your turn.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I would like to also conclude what happened during the cluster yesterday. So first of all, we discussed that what is the role of inclusion work package in the CHARM EU. So our role is to mainstream inclusion and diversity in CHARM EU's culture, design, and delivery processes. And we also discussed that inclusion needs to be holistically understood. And also we discussed that there are also interconnections between any kind of policies and any kind of practices, including our current theme of the conference of the European Green Deal and Sustainable Development Goals. So we also discussed the interconnections and that we need to collaborate. We also highlighted that social sustainability is a core element, and also we need to focus that no one is left behind, which means that whenever we're designing and discussing policies and practices, we are reflecting and also acting on it, who is excluded from decision-making processes and also program designs, deliveries, etc. So that we are also taking into account people with the diverse backgrounds, own lived experiences, and various access needs. And we need for that very meaningful collaborations from individuals and also stakeholders. And we also would like to involve as many people as possible, because we really believe in that nothing about us without us, which is also an umbrella term and used in many ways across Europe, but it's also essential for us. For that, we understand and we are realistic that inclusion is a journey. So step by step, we can achieve more, and we can also create together an inclusive European environment, an inclusive global environment, and we need to work together. So I'm very honored and very delighted that so far in CHARM, with the work packages and with different stakeholders, external stakeholders, students, NGOs, etc. We are working together and we keep collaborating. Our recommendations for the future is to have a meaningful involvement of individuals and stakeholders. And we also would like to provide further recommendations, policy recommendations, and also practical hands-on tools and things that can support to work toward a more inclusive Charm EU and Europe. Last but not least, I also would like to highlight and thank again for our speakers at the cluster. We covered various circumstances. We had from the University of Barcelona, the speaker Catalina Yes Paradero, coordinator for the support program of the refugee program. Then we had from the Eötvös Loránd University, Kristina Kovacs is the head of the Disability Support Unit. Then we had from Montpellier, Agnès Fichard-Carol, Vice President in charge of social responsibility. Then we had a colleague from Trinity College Dublin, Jennifer Maguire Donohoe, at the pathways to law. And last but not least, we had from Utrecht University, Gönül Dilaver, professor of biomedical science. And with these exchanges of good practices, we confirm that it is essential to have exchanges of good practices, but also looking at the challenges so we can learn from the challenges. Thank you so much, and I give the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, Agnès Sarolta. With these three summaries, we really have sort of set an agenda of topics that will be tackled by Charm EU in the follow-up. And now it's time of the closing remarks. I would like to invite Tim Savage, Senior Advisor of Charm EU at the Trinity College London, and Vanessa Debier-Sainton, Head of Higher Education Unit of the European Commission, to deliver that concluding remarks. So maybe let us first start with Tim Savage, Senior Advisor at Charm EU at the Trinity College.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone. I'm the lucky one today in that I was not a rapporteur, I was not running any of the sessions. So as such, I had a great opportunity to sit back and just listen and participate. And I think it's been a fascinating day and a half. So for me, I get to reflect a little bit on the overarching theme about the connection between Charm EU and the EU Green Deal and the SDGs, and really pick up on some of the points that have been said over the last while. I think the first thing that strikes me is the synergy of the kind of flavor of both of these initiatives, the interconnectedness and the complexity of both the EU Green Deal with its variety, its panoply of policies and action plans, and the fact that Charm EU is trying to engender an understanding amongst students of the complexity of dealing with sustainability issues through challenges. I also like to really pick up on something that Monica Skadborg said in the opening sessions about sustainability not being an add-on, that it should be something that's a core aspect of what all education is. And from this, really, this focus on the student experience is something that I'm starting to pick up coming through in the last while. It makes me reflect on the fact that we cannot actually create the leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs that are going to empower the Green Deal in the future. In fact, the word education itself, if you go back to its 16th, 15th century roots, is about leading out, drawing out, and nourishing amongst people. So my reflection is that what we can do in Charm EU to support the Green Deal is we can help the students realize their potential. We can help them to become. And we can, as Agnes was saying, focus on making sure that this goes for all students, realizing all their potential, to allow them to really take on these fundamental challenges that we're dealing as a planet and as a continent. And the way perhaps we can do this is rather than seeing an old model of education, we're really looking about providing a landscape, a range of authentic experiences working with NGOs and government organizations, the business, the societal actors, the whole range of academic disciplines, this transdisciplinary. We allow them this location, this space, this landscape, this environment to work within. We give them access to networks of academics and networks of business communities. We challenge them, and we put these problems and challenges, as somebody says, right in the middle of their experience. And in this way, I think we can allow them to become the leaders and entrepreneurs and innovators that can really instantiate and address the EU Green Deal as it goes on. So it has to be hand in glove. But to do this process, we need to co-create, as Jan was saying earlier. It needs to be authentic. We need to make sure that the students aren't just consulted, but they're actually right at the core of the design, the development, the evaluation, the research, and the ongoing iterations of these courses and modules across all of the European universities. And I think, as Vanessa, who's coming on after me, said earlier on, I think the other aspect of what CHARM can do to support the Green Deal is we can explore these models of education. We can write them up, we can disseminate them, we can try and promulgate and profligate these ideas to allow other HEIs, other higher education institutions, to see if they can adopt them, to pull the students into the center, recognizing that these students are going to be the leaders if we allow them to realize their full potential and help them on their way. Thank you.
It's the turn. Thank you very much, Team Savage. And now it's the turn of Vanessa Debier-Sainton, Head of Higher Education Unit of the European Commission, for her closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you. It's really a pleasure for me to be with all of you again today. And I would like to congratulate all of you for the very rich and fruitful discussions on how the European universities, and in particular CHARM EU, can contribute to the European Green Deal. And we've learned so much and heard so many good ideas that you just summarized before. We heard that transdisciplinarity and this challenge-based approach is a fantastic way to connect learning and teaching with the real-world challenges, as Claudia Cavadas explained yesterday. Barbara Koch this morning explained that it's really necessary to break down disciplinary barriers, implement new flexibility with short courses and mainstream lifelong learning as well, and listen to societal and industrial needs that are very, very important. And as Celia Bellin said, I like that very much, that we need to look at different ways to think about health, but also climate change and all the other challenges. Research-based learning is very important as well. This is why looking at this not only from an education perspective, but looking at it through the wide spectrum of the missions of your university, from education, research, and innovation, is also very important to link all this together, so that students can learn from your research activities, but also your researchers can learn from the powerful mind of the students. So very, very rich ideas there. We fully support as well the outcomes from the second cluster on sustainable mobility ways. And here I liked very much your objectives to reduce the carbon footprint, including through virtual exchanges or blended mobility, and this collaborative online international learning COIL. This is an objective that we want to support and that we will support with the future Erasmus Plus program, not only within the European Universities Initiative, but through all the different actions. As part of that program, we are going to complement the mobility opportunities to offer to any higher education institutions, their staff and students, these opportunities to develop the COIL approach. Not only because indeed virtual mobility is more sustainable, but also because it can be also more inclusive by bringing international at home and making the program as well more inclusive. So you can expect even more support from the Erasmus Plus program on that front in the future. I would like to recall as well about the European Student Card Initiative, which also be a key element in terms of sustainability and for the carbon footprint to reduce it, because it will allow to organize all this mobility, be it virtual, blended or physical, in a more sustainable way by suppressing all the paperwork. So all the exchange, the data exchange will take place electronically in a very secure way. And I welcome now very much as well the conclusion from Agnès on the inclusiveness. I can fully subscribe to everything you said, and as you know, because we work together, this is very much in line with the objectives of the future Erasmus Plus program. So really very rich ideas during these 2 days that my colleagues Sumati and Julie reported to me. And all these outcomes will feed in our discussions in the coming months and in the coming year to co-create this higher education transformation agenda by the end of next year, and how universities can contribute to the EU Green Deal will of course be at the core of this higher education transformation agenda, to make sure that, as you said before, it's not just an add-on, but that it's really included and embedded in all the curricula for all disciplines and at all levels, from bachelor to doctoral level. Many discussions to come as well on council recommendation micro-credentials. We heard as well the key role of lifelong learning and short learning experiences as well, to make learning and teaching more inclusive for a wider range of learners, including professionals. And we will have many opportunities to continue these discussions in the preparation of a council recommendation on education for environmental sustainability. This will address not only higher education, but also school education, because we need to start at a very, very early stage. And we will also take actions to ensure as well the sustainability of the European Universities Initiative, with the full rollout under the next Erasmus Plus program, supported by Horizon Europe. You heard it from my colleague Lia Kamali earlier this morning, in synergy with other European instruments like the structural funds, InvestEU, etc. So let's keep up the fantastic work together. We'll have plenty of opportunities to continue this discussion, and it's really important to continue keeping each other updated on all these progresses. And I would like to end with, I like very much what Hengs from Utrecht University said, that students are the driving force to put the Green Deal and Sustainable Development Goals in the veins and the blood of all the European universities, higher education institutions, but also in the European institutions. So we count on you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vanessa de Biais-Santon. Thank you very much, Tim Savage. And now it's time to say goodbye. I must say, I personally thank all the speakers, because it has been really an intellectually nurturing experience. I go away from these CharmEU days, plenty of interesting ideas. I would like to remind you how important and urgent is the task you are carrying out. What is at stake is really the future of our continent and of our world. Indeed, climate, biodiversity, pandemic crisis really are vital problems for the future. I invite you to follow CharmEU on its website, newsletter, and social network, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, because there will be further posts on the topics we have discussed today. And thank you very much, and bye-bye.